Hey guys, and welcome back to Staying Sweet, the podcast. If you are watching on YouTube, hello, this is me, Alice Bradley. And if you're listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or any other medium to listen to your favourite podcast, hi. I feel like this is like a brand new start for me, a new era of Alice, and the podcast legacy video was just where I saw this podcast going next, and it's why it's taken so long for me to get my stuff together. But we're here today. I've got my little note cards. I feel very professional, and yeah, I feel like today's episode is a long time coming. I don't really feel 100% ready or prepared, but that's when the best action happens, when we take messy action and we just decide to make the jump. So that's what today's episode is about. Welcome to Staying Sweet, the podcast. I hope you join and you stick along for the long haul. Please do make sure you follow over on Spotify or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And if you are on YouTube, make sure you click that subscribe button. It would mean the absolute world to me. But firstly, let me reintroduce myself. My name is Alice Lucy Bradley. I'm a journalist, influencer / content creator, photographer and podcaster. I have been in the game for a good 7-8 years now, and it's just high time I decided to get onto video as well. But without further ado, let's talk about the new setup, where we are. I'm recording from a studio in London. I'm recording with some high-tech jazzy mics and some cameras, and it feels very surreal. And I do feel slightly nervous actually, because the thought of doing video and integrating my visual aspect, it's something that I've done in my vlogs and on my Instagram before, but I haven't actually done it within my podcast. And when I was first starting my podcast just over a year ago, well, a year and a half ago now, I was very nervous. And I think when you start on a new medium, you have lots to learn about how you want to talk, your tone of voice, how it's going to sound. And when you integrate video with that as well, I feel like there's no place to hide. It's not just the voice that you're listening to, but you're also watching me today. So I really hope you guys enjoy, and please do let me know as well if you like this kind of setup, if the video helps you along or you watch it. I'd actually really be keen to know your favourite means to listen to the podcast. Are you someone who listens to it on your hot girl walk or whilst you're commuting to work? Are you somebody who likes to have a little bit of downtime and stick your favourite podcast on? Let me know. Let's start that conversation over on my Instagram, which is at Staying Sweet Podcast. So I have had vision boards galore for this podcast setup, and it's very, I would say, stripped back at the moment because it's early days. I wonder how this whole set is going to be kind of grown and interpreted, and how we're going to kind of move on in the future. But for now, it's a very stripped back set. It's me, it's visual, but it is here to stay. And I'm so glad you guys are here for the ride. It did take longer than expected, and I think that's because I was looking for the right thing. And there's nothing wrong with looking for what you deem as perfect, but in the same kind of consideration, I think there's a very fine line between hoping to find perfect and procrastinating. And I think I was kind of borderline procrastinating on it. I just didn't feel ready to make the jump. And I feel like, in all honesty, there are so many points in my life where I've had to make jumps and decisions and decide what was next for me. And I think the only time you can really know if something is going to work out is after the fact. And sitting here today recording this episode, I feel like this is so right and so meant for me. I'm working in a studio with amazing people around me. I found my studio, and I'm really excited to kind of see how everything pans out for the future. And I think if you're somebody listening to this podcast today or watching this podcast today that is thinking about a particular area of your life that you feel like you need to take a jump in, consider what you can be doing to ready yourself for that jump. And it doesn't have to be a kind of feeling of feeling 100% ready. I think sometimes you just have to have this knowingness that it's time for a new chapter, and that's what this is today. So without further ado, guys, let's start. I haven't actually spoken on the podcast since February, can you believe? And a lot has happened since then. I've had some incredible moments, and I have shared them all over on my vlog channel. and over on my Instagram, my personal Instagram at alicelucybradley. But it has been, a quiet time for the podcast. So if you're somebody who listens just solely to the podcast, I feel like I've got lots to update you on. I have been traveling a fair bit. I've been working part-time for Fabric magazine, which I've been absolutely loving. The team there are incredible. And I've had some really exciting bylines as of late. I actually got to interview the diary of a CEO himself, Mr. Stephen Bartlett, which was absolutely incredible and a once in a lifetime kind of moment for me, where it just kind of all aligned, was all working kind of in my favour, and it just kind of felt like the right time. The interview was incredible, and it was my first ever male cover. It was actually the first male cover for Arcadia magazine, and what an issue it was. Very, very proud of it, very excited, and happy for my team as well, and just so thrilled that I got to be in the presence of someone who is very inspiring to me on the kind of podcasting front, but also on the entrepreneurial front. And it's one of those things where time just kind of slows when you do make that jump, or you decide to kind of feel confident enough and ready enough to do the thing. And if I really deep it, the thought of 2023 Alice interviewing Stephen Bartlett, I think that to me would have felt so, oh my gosh, like high achieving, very, very kind of end goal situation. And I'm not sure I really felt 100% prepared for it, but you can only do what you can do, and you just have to kind of trust your intuition and your guidance and your kind of inner knowingness that you can make it happen. If you really truly desire something and you have like a longer term end goal, you can make it happen for yourself. So yeah, lots of things have been happening. I feel like this podcast is coming out at a perfect time for us all. It's a mid-year kind of goal check-in. We're kind of thinking about what we can be focusing on for the last 2 quarters of the year, dare I say it. I know it's gone very quickly this year, but it's really that time of year where, yes, please do enjoy summer, but there's lots of things to be working on at the same time. So I have a question of the week, guys, and typically before in my last 2 series, I had a kind of quote of the week, which I will kind of dip into when it feels right. But for the most part, I'm going to be doing questions of the week. And that is going to be, when was the last time you jumped and scaled in your life? So that could be a job move. It could be a push in the gym to hit your personal best. It could be that you decided to invest in something big. I think an example right now would be the decision to bring video to life, for you guys to be kind of watching me as well as listening to me today. And I think thinking back to some time in your life where you've jumped into the unknown territory, so something that feels scary but is the only way that you can really truly grow. So let's have a think about that for today's episode, really, and focus on that. I think a moment for me jumping in this episode is I haven't really got a solid format, and I haven't really worked out exactly how I want this to work. And I've ummed and ahed and kind of mulled it over myself, listened to lots of other podcasts, and looked into kind of how people do their best work. But ultimately, my podcast is not the same as theirs, and all I can do is just follow my intuition, my guidance, and of course listen to you guys. So if there's anything that you would like to see me talk about, or format wise you'd like me to incorporate in the podcast, please do let me know. This is an open and a very safe space, and I welcome all your feedback. And yeah, I just can't wait to see where this goes. I think when you consider a time to jump or make a decision to kind of change the trajectory of your life or kind of get yourself on a different course, I think it's really important to kind of revisit the drawing board. And by drawing board, to me, it's always been the vision board, and that's where I tend to find the most kind of realignment and recalibration when I might be umming and ahhing or kind of toying between options or ideas, and I'm not kind of sure where to go with something. I will always, without a doubt, get back to that vision board. And if the vision board doesn't feel aligned for me, I kind of rejig things, move things around, and look at what I truly want. And it's crazy how much of my vision board for this year has been podcast/studio related stuff. So it was like, Alice, why are you not just cracking on with it? You want to tick this off your list and you want to make it happen. So just get it done. And that kind of brings me on to my next point, really, which is fail before you scale. And no, that's not just for the sake of rhyming. It's because sometimes you have to act before you're ready. And sometimes you're going to make a decision that does not work out and doesn't pan out. But it doesn't mean it's the wrong decision, because you've learned something in the process, in the jump, and you've kind of taken on this new belief in yourself. So never see that kind of moment of things not working out, or maybe things having to be amended or changed, as a failure. I think looking back at how long it's been, we're recording this end of June, you guys are going to be seeing this in July, from February to July, to be off a podcast for that long, there was a point where I was kind of thinking, oh my gosh, is this going to fail? Am I going to not be able to make this work and make this happen? But no, you keep persevering, you make the decision, and you show up. And that's the best way to do things. So ultimately, I think I was holding back with this podcast relaunch because I was kind of comparing myself to high production podcasts that I know you guys listen to. I listen to them myself. And I was kind of thinking, gosh, people are going to be watching this or potentially listening to my podcast and thinking, well, she's no, Girls Bathroom, or she's no Grace Beverley. But ultimately, that's a different kind of experience. And it's not to say that I don't aim to be at that kind of caliber, but there's no point comparing yourself to something that's not quite in your lane yet. There's always a moment for you to grow and grow into that next stage and that next phase. And really, when I kind of deeped it, I realized those people behind those podcasts have a production team. They have editors, they have a set designer, they have someone who is, organizing all the interviews. And it made me realize, like, wow, I'm doing this all myself, cut some slack here. And I think if you're doing something like you're owning a business, or you're starting something from scratch, or you're building your social media platform, or you're attending university, you're doing this by yourself. You're making this, happen by yourself. So again, just cut yourself some slack and actually realize how much effort you are truly putting in. When you start to grow and you start to build your business and scale up, then you can outsource. And that's a beautiful thing, guys. Outsourcing is heavenly. But when you're first starting out, you might not have the means to do that. So just kind of be open to the idea that, yes, things might be a little bit more stripped back. It might not be the end goal, but it's a step in the right direction. And it's funny, actually, because I was clearing out my room this weekend and I found a book of business cards. And the first business card in the book was my very first business card when I was at school. I was still at college. It had my old email address, my very first email address. It had a Blogspot account, which was the OG like Google Blogger back in the day before that went. And that's where I hosted my blog. And do you know what's so funny? Do you know what really makes me laugh? Underneath the bio, because I wasn't a journalist yet, I hadn't even gone to university, my bio was international blogger, because all I wanted to do was make people believe that I was kind of at that next phase, at that next step in my life. And sometimes you kind of have to wing it. Sometimes you have to blag it a little bit. So you know what? I'm definitely not an international blogger, but I made it happen and I use those business cards. And yeah, I still kind of have that business card as a reminder that you've got to start somewhere. And without the jump, without setting up that blog back, back in the day, I think, 10 years ago, which is crazy, I would not be, nearly 10 years actually, I would not be where I am today. So take that and kind of think about that for yourself. I also really appreciate your patience with this podcast because I know you guys have been really enjoying it. And actually, since taking a break, I've gained a new audience, and to see the podcast kind of grow organically whilst I've been absent from it has been really interesting. And it kind of goes to show that there is longevity in content that you produce and things that you share. You don't realize how or when or where someone might come across your content, but if it touches someone and it motivates someone, you are taking that action and you're shaping someone else's life. And I've had some really incredible DMs lately, so I'm very grateful to those people who have reached out and kind of given me like the confidence boost whilst I've been kind of establishing myself. So I can't wait for you guys to see what this series is going to bring. I have to admit, it's very early days whilst I'm recording this, and I don't have much of a plan, I'll be honest with you, but I can't wait to see where it's going to go. I know you guys are going to love it. So make sure you are subscribed, you're following me, and if you could please leave a rate and review, that would be incredible. If you're not already, head over to my podcast Instagram at Staying Sweet Podcast, where you'll see up-to-date kind of insider info and lots of community conversation over there. And for a more intimate and just a more exciting new venture, I also have a Staying Sweet Society, which is for all my women in business who want access to insider information, events, and just some insider knowledge, all in a community forum. You can head over to the Facebook, which will be linked in the description and in the show notes. Thank you so much, guys, for listening and watching whenever you are doing so. I can't wait for you to join this next adventure. And yeah, I will see you guys and hear from you guys very, very soon.